Oh man, how's it going, everyone? 8:32 in the morning, and man, I hope you guys are jumping on. Sorry, I'm new. I'm new to doing it like this, so it's taking me a second. And things are popping up, but hey, my name is Trevor Ferris. I'm the elementary pastor here at VRL, and we're doing something a little bit different this summer. We are going through a series as a church here at VRL called the Summer on the Mount, where we're going through, you guessed it, the Sermon on the Mount. And so every week, the person who preach gets just kind of the chance to talk through maybe a little bit more about the passage that they had that they didn't get the chance to dive into. If a sermon's between 30-35 minutes, but you have more material, you either have to like skimp on some stuff or cut some stuff out completely. And then because of a scheduling conflict, Dan and I had to switch. So I know Dan preached yesterday for Father's Day, and I'm not Dan. But I want to kind of jump back to the first week of this series where I preached, and then throughout the week I'm actually going to jump into some of his stuff as well, just because I found it interesting as he was preaching yesterday. So what I opened up with was the Beatitudes, and really this just whole idea that Jesus is establishing a kingdom. That's what the Sermon on the Mount is about. As he travels from place to place, he preaches the same general message, which is the kingdom of heaven is here. The kingdom of heaven is coming. It's kind of this now and not yet situation. If you would read more in the book of Hebrews, you would see a lot about that. So what I want to do is not give you a full thought. You're not going to walk away from this and go, man, that really seems like that was fully articulated. But more to say, these are the things that I thought were really interesting that made its way into what it is that Jesus is trying to teach us and tell us. And so I want to jump back to the book of Exodus, which is I start in that sermon from 2 weeks ago. If you haven't watched it, I encourage you to do so, not because it like is the greatest thing of all time, but because it sets up the next 10 weeks. It's very historical in that nature. So what we want to talk about today, or what I want to talk about, is what didn't make it into the sermon, which is Matthew is comparing Jesus to Moses, Jesus to Moses, Jesus to Moses, or Moses to Jesus, Moses to Jesus, until he says, oh, but by the way, he's God. Something interesting that I found is that there was something there's multiple sources, multiple time periods, these prayers to unknown gods or prayers to every god. And I found these fascinating, dating all the way back to a cuneiform language 5,000 years ago, would be a prayer to an unknown god that would read something along the lines of, if I have offended the sun god, please forgive me. And if I have offended the God of agriculture, please forgive me. And if I have offended the God of fertility, please forgive me. And these people would pray these prayers of, I don't know who I ticked off, but I'm really sorry about it. And there's another one I have on my phone here, and it's from it's an Assyrian and Babylonian prayer. So I'm not sure this particular one which it is. Again, this is why I didn't make the sermon. I didn't have enough time to dive into it. I also didn't feel like reading a Babylonian prayer in the middle of our church service. But it starts off, it says, part one is a prayer to Marduk. And it says, oh, eternal ruler, Lord of everything that exists. And he prays to Marduk. And then the next part, it says, let's see, there's another one to Marduk. Prayer to Nabu, and prayer to Nergal, and prayer to Nibib. I'm going to pronounce that wrong. And they would have these prayers, and they would say, hey, I'm going to cover my bases. I'm going to apologize to everyone. I'm going to praise everything, hoping that God, the one that I have offended, will forgive me. This was the logic. In Acts chapter 17, Paul is walking through the city, and I believe it's Athens. I don't, again, see, this is why I don't fully research these things if I don't have the time for them. He's walking through the city in Acts chapter 17, and he sees statue after statue after statue and idol after idol, and one of them is listed as, this is an idol to an unknown God. And the premise is, we're going to worship the God of the sun, and we're going to worship the God of agriculture. And in case we forgot one, we're going to worship the unknown God. And Paul comes in and he goes, hey, I have good news. I can tell you about this unknown God. And he tells them about God. He tells them about Jesus. He shares the gospel with them. This is what's going on, culture after culture after culture, generation after generation after generation. And God comes along and gives Moses the 10 Commandments. And this was so important because what God essentially says is, hey, if you ever wonder why you're being punished for something. And again, I gotta say this: Old Testament God, kind of a savage. He was the God who was like opening up the ground and swallowing people up and like making them drink liquid gold. And he did not have maybe the caring nature that Jesus shows on a daily basis. And he said, hey, if you're ever being punished and you wonder what's going on, I want you to revisit these commandments. Hey, are you worshiping other gods and making false idols? Are you honoring your father and mother? Are you taking my name in vain? Are you murdering? Are you? He goes through the Ten Commandments. He goes, this is a peace offering where I get to tell you if something has gone awry, revisit these and don't ask the question, which God have I offended? It's, hey, what is it that God has commanded me to do that I am not doing? Or what has God commanded me to not do that I am doing, or what, however you say that. He's basically saying this: stop asking all of the gods what you did. There's one God, it's me. And you can come back to this. And it would be like if you came home and your spouse was really angry at you and you said, what did I do? And you just started apologizing. You just said, I'm sorry. If it's because I didn't do the dishes, I'm sorry. And if it's because I didn't fold the laundry, I'm sorry. If it's because I didn't mow the lawn, I'm sorry. If it's because I left the gas tank empty in the car, I'm sorry. And you just sort of apologize for everything. But what if there was just like a note on the counter and it just said, hey, it's our anniversary and we have a dinner reservation and you didn't go and you didn't show up, and you're like, I'm sorry for this, I'm sorry for this, I'm sorry for this. And your spouse is like, hey, I'm mad, but at least you know exactly why I'm mad. That is what God gave them. God gave them, like, if I'm mad at you, you will know why. And this is what we do to stay cool. This is how this covenant relationship is going to work. And so, in context to the sermon, as Jesus goes up on the mountainside in the Sermon on the Mount, he begins to teach, he begins to preach, and he establishes his kingdom in this way. He says, hey, my kingdom, this is what my kingdom is about. And he gives the characteristics and the Beatitudes. But then he goes on in this week's sermon, he says, you're going to be the salt and light. You're going to be the ones to live this out. When people are going to associate my kingdom with the way that you are, the way that you treat others, the way that you act. And then he's going to tell them how to act. He's going to straight up say, like, this is the playbook. This is what God gave Moses in the Ten Commandments, and this is what Jesus is giving us now, is like, this is how you live out a life of following me. So again, none of that is like this concise, put a bow on it and send it home. But I just want you to understand, like, when God gave the Ten Commandments and when Jesus gives these commands in the Sermon on the Mount, especially in what's coming up over the next 8 weeks, this is a thing that we should be grateful for, because we don't have to wonder, am I being punished, or is God mad at me, or did I do something I didn't know about? Like, he is very explicitly saying, this is what I'm about. So join me, or understand that you're not with me. But there's no vagueness here of, are you with me or are you not with me? And so as we get to dive into this over the next 3 days online and then the next 8 weeks at church, just understand that this was a really gracious thing that God was doing for his people. They didn't have to wonder, why is this stuff happening to me? So with that, have a great day. This feels so weird to just be like, and that's it. But again, these are more informational this week as we're diving into these sermons. So have a great day, and I'll see you tomorrow. We're going to dive into another just ADD tangent of mine as we unpack the first couple Sermon on the Mount messages. So have a good one. I'll see you guys later. Peace out.